Well, every word, every move in yesterday's meeting between the Prime Minister and the American President was reviewed and dissected, almost like a sporting event. Such was the importance of this meeting for Mark Carney, who was elected to stand up to Donald Trump. Eric Ham is CTV's Washington analyst. Eric, you were one of the many people in D.C. watching this all very closely. What were you struck by?
Well, I was really surprised by the Prime Minister's ability to effectively and very deftly counter-punch with Donald Trump and do it in a way that was so stunning. He came across almost like a silent assassin. I think he knew that people back home were watching. They wanted to see if, in fact, they had elected the right man who could do what he said he would do, which is stand up to Donald Trump. And I think we saw him do that wonderfully yesterday in that meeting. You saw him sitting there in that chair, almost like a caged tiger at times, ready to pounce when Donald Trump would spout off misinformation about the Canada-U.S. relationship. But also, too, he was willing to do it in a way that would not actually be seen as disrespectful or that would raise the ire of Donald Trump. In fact, I don't even think Donald Trump knew that he was being played that way. So I thought it was a very, very welcome introduction to Mark Carney, to the world stage, and also making clear to the United States and, of course, Canada's biggest trading partner that Canada will stand up and Canada certainly will push back when necessary.
Okay, well, that picks up on my next question. Yeah, I think the general sense here is that he did rather well. How's it being scored in the Beltway?
Well, this was a highly anticipated meeting, even though we know that the White House spoke about this meeting in very flippant terms. I think what you saw from many people inside the Beltway, again, was a prime minister who was prepared for the moment, who recognized the political impact of this meeting and the moment, and certainly rose to the level. Many people may not be familiar with the Prime Minister. Many people certainly didn't know what to expect. In fact, there were many who were concerned that perhaps we would see Prime Minister Carney get quote-unquote Zelensky'd during the meeting. But we did not see that. In fact, I think what we saw was the exact opposite. We saw a prime minister who was able to parry and who was able to effectively counter a lot of what we saw. In fact, I'm writing a piece for the CTV News website where I actually talk about how Donald Trump talked about himself as a real estate developer, and then Mark Carney was able to parry that very same moment, the same language that Donald Trump used to expertly say that, you know, as you know, in real estate, there are many places that are not for sale. Buckingham Palace being one, this building being one, meaning the White House where he was. And then he said Canada is not for sale. I thought that was handled very adroitly, very deftly, and I thought he did it in a way that even Donald Trump did not know he was literally being sliced by the Prime Minister.
Eric, the idea that a world leader has to sit in the White House and tell the President of the United States that a country is not for sale, I mean, we've certainly never seen the likes of that before. There seems to be a tightrope walk for international leaders going to the White House, right? Don't be seen to be bending the knee. Keir Starmer got a lot of pushback in the UK. People felt that he was just groveling at the foot of Donald Trump. But also don't get lured into a fight. And you mentioned the Zelensky episode. So it's a real dance. And perhaps Mr. Carney, in terms of optics, you know, won that. And I'm wondering if that was really what Canadians wanted to get most out of this meeting, because really it didn't sound like a whole lot happened given what Mr. Carney said afterwards in terms of there were no concessions or any movement.
Well, I certainly did not expect that we would get any deliverables from this meeting. In fact, I think what we saw from the president himself was he made clear he wanted friendship out of this meeting, which was very striking considering the relationship he had with the former Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. But again, I think what we saw from both men was they planted their respective flags in terms of what they wanted to see from this meeting. We heard Donald Trump say he was not moving off the tariffs, but we also heard the Prime Minister say the USMCA, the U.S.-Mexico-Canada Free Trade Agreement, which we know Donald Trump renegotiated during his first term, he said that has to change. And so I think what you saw were both men who were making clear their positions and that they were simply immovable on these issues. And again, I think it was the prime minister standing his ground, which is what the Canadians actually voted and elected him to do.
It's been a little more than 24 hours since the meeting. Donald Trump, you mentioned, said some very positive things about how it went. But I find it interesting that he hasn't tweeted anything to the contrary since, because that often seems to be in the playbook.
You're absolutely right. And again, I think what it speaks to is that silent assassin gene that we see from the prime minister, that clearly there was no giveaways. And I think that is what the prime minister went into this meeting hoping to get out, was lay your issues, your concerns on the table, but don't give the president any ammunition to use as a means to be able to win the news cycle or to incite or excite his base. And I think what we saw was a prime minister who was very adept at how Donald Trump operates and made sure that Donald Trump would not have that ammunition coming out of the meeting.
And importantly, has laid the groundwork for more meetings and hopefully some movement, some resolution on some of these. Eric Ham, our eyes and ears in Washington. Always great to get your insight, Eric. We'll look for that piece on ctvnews.ca. Thanks so much for being with us.
You bet. Thank you.
Still a lot more of your local news tonight. Stay with us.